It's time for the Las Vegas Sports Line, brought to you by the Sunset Station with sports director Chuck Esposito. Presented by WagerTalk.com.
Okay, it's a crazy Monday. The Giants have 17 runs on the board at Coors, and they're still playing. I'm Dave Cokin, back from vacation. We are back on the air with the Las Vegas Sportsline after taking All-Star Week off. Marco DAngelo from WagerTalk is here. Chuck Esposito from Station Casino's Sunset Station is with us. Lots to talk about as we hit the Monday edition. Chuck's on the phone with us right now. Good afternoon, Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. Good to have you back, Dave. Hope you had a nice vacation and enjoyed some sun in Southern California and are back ready to rock.
That I did. And, the same thing happens every time I go down there. I don't want to come back. I mean, it's just the weather's fantastic. The food was great. The beach was terrific. But we are back and ready to go. And I got back in time to watch an absolutely phenomenal tennis match yesterday for the Wimbledon Championship. Djokovic and Federer. I mean, look, I'm not a big tennis fan, but I don't know how anybody can't get electrified watching a matchup like that. And this was one for the ages, Chuck.
It was, and especially two guys like that. When you've got Federer and Djokovic, I mean, you've got such known guys, two of the greatest male tennis players ever. In a match like that, I think the interesting prop would have been what was longer, the tennis match or the Dodgers-Red Sox game last night.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, it was a phenomenal match. Those guys are just such tremendous tennis players and athletes, and it was one for the ages. It was fun to watch. Good handle on all tennis guys. We really tennis across the board. Good handle, good interest, especially on in-play. But it was a lot of fun for our side of the counter, too.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Federer was probably the more, at least sentimental choice from the bettors. Was that the case?
It was, and I think just based on the price, you thought there was some value there on it, just like with the women against Serena, maybe a little value there. But overall, again, very, very good, handle across the board.
Chuck, as we head into NFL, we know that you've been doing your homework, and we're going to start previewing some of the NFL divisions. And let's start with the NFC East, and we'll just go down the teams and tell us what you think about them. The Dallas Cowboys, where are they at right now to win the division and for the Super Bowl futures, and what are your take on the Cowboys?
They're the favorite, Marco, to win the division. I think when you look at Dallas, I think you can they're kind of co-favorites, I should say, with Philly. You can make a case that the way Cooper played when they got him last year and a healthy offensive line and bringing Jason Witten back and the development of Prescott, that they are a better team. Still some question marks about, what direction do they ultimately go as far as head coach. Is he going to be there? Isn't he going to be there? But I think that team, especially offensively, with that defense and those linebackers play, is a very good team right now, although they do have some contract stuff up in the air. And it's not only for their head coach, but it's Elliott, and it's Prescott, and it's Cooper. So they've got some difficult decisions to make, but I think they're a really good team heading into the season.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. On paper, the Cowboys do look good. But the one thing that would concern me, and I think this is legitimate, is that over the past several years, we've seen a repeated pattern where the Cowboys, when they're expected to be really solid and strong contenders, have managed not to be. And it's kind of been the years like last season where they weren't really possessed of high expectations that they outperformed what was expected of them. So now we're back on the upside of that bandwagon with big hopes for the Cowboys, and I wonder if the pressure to perform is going to be a hindrance to them.
Well, I mean, that's a big question. I think there's a lot of pressure on Prescott. He says, we know that we'll all get paid. He did take some strides last year. I think there's more pressure on him to perform this year. They've got Randall Cobb in the slot. If Cooper's, there, and you've got Cooper now, you've got that big-time wideout. Witten, when he's healthy and if he can come back and even be, half of Jason Witten, I mean, he is still a great target, especially underneath and a safety valve. And with that offensive line, and if you have a healthy Zeke with the way that defense plays, especially those linebackers, I think they can be really good. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot more pressure on them this year with so much up in the air as far as contracts go, not only for players but coaches.
Marco, where are you with the Cowboys?
Well, Dave, I'm not really sold on Dak Prescott. He had the breakout season in his rookie season, and then when he didn't have Zeke in the second year, we saw that big regression. The last year, we saw him come back to not what he was in year one, but it was better than he was the year before. Witten back, if he can be anything close to what he was, it's going to give him that security blanket whenever a play breaks down and he can't go downfield. He's got the security blanket over the middle, to dump it off. And it's also going to help the running game with Witten on the line. So I think the key to Dak is the running game. And now if that running game's clicking, and we saw when they had the deep threat with Cooper, it did open up the offense. We've said it many times. When you have a good running game, it's going to make an average quarterback better, and that's where they're at. And I don't think there's that big of a gap between them and Philadelphia. We saw the regression last year. Now it's when we get to Philadelphia, we'll talk more with Foles being gone and what that's going to do with that team. But they are one of the favorites. But I just don't like the head coach.
Spend a little time on Witten because it is an interesting situation. Look, how many times have we seen this where a great player retires and he had shown some erosion the final year, and then he's out for a year and he feels great physically. It's like, well, I think I can get back out there and do what I used to do. It rarely works out that way, Chuck. I have to tell you, in sizing up the Cowboys, to me, anything they get out of Witten is a bonus. I'm really not expecting much.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect. If he can come back, and you're right, I think we've all said it, that anything that he can provide and be that safety valve and maybe help the development of Prescott in that offense is just going to be a benefit. At this point, there's a major question mark there, and I think probably more than any other team in the division, they've got the capability to be playing late in January and early February, but there's a lot of question marks at a lot of different points on that team.
Well, one team that doesn't have a lot of question marks in terms of where they're expected to be in the NFL pecking order is the New York Giants. These are tough times for the Giants, and a lot of people, and I guess I'll have to include myself in this group, are really skeptical about what they did in the draft, perhaps reaching for Thomas Jones out of Duke, and who knows what his situation is going to be as far as playing time is concerned. I guess they're kind of committed to Eli Manning, but there's not a whole lot left in the Manning tank. The Giants look like a team that has very little chance to contend this year. Even, to me, flirting with a 500 record would be an accomplishment for them, Chuck.
Yeah, I agree. And Daniel Jones is not
Daniel
Thomas
Jones, I beg your pardon.
Quarterback. But I agree. But I do think unless something, catastrophic happens, that it is going to be Manning over center the entire season. I think, if they're teetering at all around 500, and in that division, the entire division may be around that point until December. I think it's still Manning's team. You've got arguably maybe the most polarizing running back in the league right now in Saquon Barkley. We know there's question marks with Todd Gurley and David Johnson, and Elliott's been in the league for a while, and Kamara, could he be the guy? Le'Veon Bell coming back now. But I think when you look at maybe the most dynamic back in the league, it's Barkley. Do they have enough around him? Teams are probably going to put 7-8 guys in the box and say, Eli, you have to beat us. It's funny, but last year at this time, guys, they were the team that everybody was talking about as kind of the surprise sleeper team to maybe win the Super Bowl. Not the case this year. I think they're probably going to battle with Washington for the bottom end of the East. Personal opinion, I think Washington is a much more improved team. But I do think it's going to be Eli again, unless something catastrophic happens and they're 1-9 or 2-10 before you see Daniel Jones.
Well, Marco, I think it's fair to say the quarterback position is not one of strength for the Giants this year. And making matters worse is I look at their receiving core and I don't see a great deal there.
No, they upgraded on the offensive line. They went out and improved the offensive line, but then who are you going to throw the football to now that you got more protection? So obviously they're going to be looking more to the running game with Barkley. But my also concern is the thing that kept the Giants in a lot of games was their defense. They lost a lot of people on defense, and they went out and got some people, but did they actually replace the strength that they got rid of? That's my concern. This is a team that's going to have trouble scoring points, I think, this year. And if the defense isn't carrying them, it could be a very, very long season for the Giants.
Mark, Chuck, you mentioned that last year the Giants were indeed a really popular betting option before the season started. I was not one of those people that was high on the Giants, so I turned out to be right on that one. I'm certainly not high on them this year. I think I might be right again, but we'll have to wait and see. Is the market the complete opposite this year, where everybody's waiting to or making the moves to bet against them on win totals and anything else associated with a positive outcome? I just can't see where anybody's putting their money down that way. Is that the case?
It is. I mean, when you look at that division and you look at the Eagles and the Cowboys, on paper they're clearly the better teams. And I do think I'm a little bit higher on Washington. I think we can kind of dive right into the Redskins as well. I know we're breaking down the entire division. They were in that wild card discussion almost the entire season last year, and no team had more injuries than the Redskins did. I think when you look at all the young quarterbacks in the league, the rookie quarterbacks, my feeling is that it's Haskins' job to lose. I don't think you can make that case for a lot of even first and maybe second-year guys. There's a controversy. I think they want to do everything they can in camp to have Haskins win that job, and I just don't see a lot behind him. I know Colt McCoy has been a serviceable backup. We don't know if Alex Smith will be back. Keenum's third team in 3 years. Yeah. I think it's all Haskins. I like their running backs a lot, especially if they're going to be healthy. If Darius Geis can come back from that knee injury and then the hamstring injury, and Chris Thompson's back, he's got some weapons in the backfield. And I thought defensively, outside of the injuries, they were a decent team last year. So I think the Redskins are kind of that intriguing team in that division, depending on how Haskins plays.
And we'll mention that Alex Smith, and it's only 8 months. He's got the brace off already. So Alex Smith looks like he's really serious about being as ready as he can be for the start of training camp. Now, I don't know what the Redskins' strategy is going to be in terms of using him in preseason games, if they're going to use him at all. But this is interesting because the Redskins could be one of those teams that have some position battles going on in preseason. And without getting to the regular season yet, and just looking at the preseason, those are generally teams you kind of want to be on in preseason because guys are vying for jobs and playing time.
Well, you think about their running backs. I mean, if Geis is okay by preseason, a guy who had, I think, a 28 or 38-yard run on the play that he got hurt at in his first preseason game, you bring Bryce Love into the mix. You're hoping that you have a healthy Chris Thompson, who's one of the best third down backs in the league. You have Adrian Peterson there. You've got a lot of young wideouts. You hope that Josh Doctson can take the next step. The big, kind of enigma, I guess, at tight end is going to be Jordan Reed, if he can stay healthy. But you've got Vernon Davis. So there are some pieces there. But I think in the backfield especially, guys, you're going to see some really good battles. And I think that's interesting, as you alluded to. That's maybe a team you want to be on. But this was a Redskin team with all their injuries last year. Again, was in the discussion really late last year in the wild card race. So I think there's only one direction for them to go if these guys stay healthy, and I think it's up. And I don't think there's that big of a gap, personally, between them, Philadelphia, and Dallas, just based on the roster, if Haskins can be that guy at quarterback.
You know what's interesting about them last year, Marco? I think this is accurate. The Redskins were one of the grittiest teams in the league. I mean, they really hung tough. Chuck mentioned all the injuries that they had. They weren't supposed to be that good anyway. And yet there were almost no games that the Redskins weren't in the fourth quarter with a chance to win. So I think the coaching staff did a good job with the team. And but the downside is, did they overachieve last season in terms of hanging in beyond expectations?
Well, part of that, too, is the rest of the team being a little bit, you want to say something to prove with Kirk Cousins leaving. Yeah. He had been a little bit of a distraction for the last couple of years with the contracts and everything else. But now bringing in Case Keenum, my question is, if Alex Smith is not ready to go to start the season, are you going to start Case Keenum, or are you going to just bite the bullet and go with Haskins? Going to depend on what the preseason looks like. But for Case Keenum, I've never been high on Case Keenum. And as Chuck said, 3 different systems in 3 years. That, I don't care if you're a seasoned vet or not, that doesn't help a quarterback, and especially one that's only been mediocre for most of his career. So I'm not as high on Washington unless Haskins has that dynamic. Yeah. Remember, you had a quarterback several years ago. He only had one good year there, but RG3, his first year was by far.
He was magic.
For 1 year. Could they get lightning in a bottle again with Haskins? I know a lot of guys are high on Haskins. I want to see it, because tell me the last Ohio State quarterback that has left the program and done well on the pro level.
It's true.
Well, I think when you look at